Did you know that according to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, 2/3 of all our fruits and veggies eaten in the United States come from outside the country? And there are all kinds of problems with that. For one, an apple that had to travel hundreds or even thousands of miles to get to your plate can't be all that fresh or nutritious. And I say that's just crazy, especially when we can grow so many different varieties in our own front and backyards. Jumping into growing your own food is actually quite simple. You just need to know the rules. My free webinar, Introduction to Urban Farming, begins to frame out your pathway to growing your own healthy food. In this free webinar, you'll learn the 3 simple steps to becoming an urban farmer, the 5 components of healthy soil, and how to think regeneratively, which is, by the way, one of the most important concepts we need to be exploring right now. Will you join me in this webinar and help co-create the food revolution? Just text GARDEN to 44222 or go to urbanfarmu.org to sign up for your free webinar. That's GARDEN to 44222 or urbanfarmu.org.
You're listening to the Urban Farm Podcast, your partner in the Grow Your Own Food revolution. Whether you've just been introduced to urban farming or you're a lifelong advocate, we're sure you'll leave feeling more informed, equipped, and empowered to dig deeper into the soil of your local food economy. With you every step of the way, here's your host, Greg Peterson.
Today on the Urban Farm Podcast, we have Vynnie McDaniels of Xericopia Urban Gardens to talk about his experience with water-wise gardening. Vynnie has been gardening in the Phoenix area for over 15 years, teaching organic gardening and holistic living. His handiwork has graced the pages of Phoenix Home and Garden, Popular Mechanics, and Dwell magazines. How cool is that? He's been on various local television programs and was featured on Sundance Channel's Big Ideas for a Small Planet. Applying permaculture concepts and xeriscape principles, his vision is to teach and educate others on the joys of urban agriculture, self-reliance, and growing your own food for improved nutrition and optimal wellness. Vynnie is currently developing Xericopia Urban Gardens, a hands-on learning space in downtown Phoenix. Welcome to the show today, Vynnie.
Welcome, Greg. It's good to be on air with you.
Yeah,
I want to be on air,
and we're actually in the same space. You came to the studio today,
right? I figured why be virtual when I can just take a little short drive en route and get some fresh air, right?
Nice. So, I shared a bit about you. Can you fill in the blanks for us and share more about the path you took to get where you're at today?
All right, my path, my grass-laden path getting here. What really got me started here was getting a house. So at the time, my wife and I, we had bought a house, and she said, why can't we have flowers? And I said, okay. And there was, got a shovel, started digging, started planting stuff, started killing stuff, started planting stuff, started killing stuff. And after you do that a while, you learn a thing or two. Mm-hmm. So that's what got me moving along there. And as I learned a little bit, I was working in an office at the time, and a few people had the office plants. They'd ask me questions about the plants, and so I'm like, all right, let's do this. And they said, hey, I got this bush in my backyard. What is it? And what do I do to it? And so I would, I'd say, all right, well, invite me over for dinner, and we'll talk about your yard. And then that evolved into, invite me over and I'll give you my rate and we'll talk about your yard.
Exactly.
And so then that spun me off into doing my own business with a lot of it. And so from there, it just grew from there. Started the Xericopia Master Gardener program.
Oh, nice.
So I did that, did the Permaculture design course, which I love.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You did do the PDC, didn't you?
Yeah, that's probably one of the most powerful courses I had taken to date. So that was wonderful and eye-opening. So much in line with what I felt just deep down.
Yeah.
Going through there, it shed so many things I was learning, studying, and you just take it all off and you start fresh and you realize for me, it came out to be something like, I know all of this. Mm-hmm. Like it's like I already know this. Growing up in Southern California, you grew up as conservation, Woodsy Owl, Smokey the Bear, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Yep. And it was just part of your life. Turn off the faucet, how to water your trees and all that kind of stuff. So getting into it from this bent of it as an adult,
right?
You don't realize like a lot of that stuff's just almost ingrained. But even then, when we were as kids doing it, it was almost like, yeah. I was like, duh, that's just how nature designed it.
Right.
So that's how, and then from there I just got into it and, learning through permaculture principles, xeriscape design principles. A lot of that really opened it up to where you back up and you stop doing so many of the steps. It's not so much a recipe. It's more of a feel. I was likened gardening to cooking. You stop following recipes and you just cook something.
And you discover
you discover. And so that's the power of it when you really, again, put down the recipe, put down a lot of the books, and you just go, what's going on? What's in my fridge? And I look at the garden. What's in my kitchen? What's in here?
What's in your garden, maybe?
I say that's just it. Yeah. So I look at the garden as like a kitchen. It's a kitchen. So you take that bend and go, what's back here that I can use? How can I use this dish? How can I use this appliance? What's in the fridge? And here, so I really took that approach to the core principles of permaculture and xeriscape. Observation.
Oh, yeah.
Just stop and see what's going on. What's nature already doing? And thus began kind of like the core of what my own personal tenets are. So that's where, and then it just evolved business-wise, meeting persons like yourself. I love how you and I, our fun story, how we met, I think 3 times or 4 times.
Something like that. Remind me, though.
As brand new people, where I got to know you when I was working in the office. I would visit the farmer's market and you were there doing stuff.
Oh, my gosh. That was over a decade ago.
Oh, yeah. Getting close. Well over 15 years. So meeting you there. And then when I kind of got into the circle of master gardeners and then permaculture, they're like, you got to meet Greg. Do you know Greg? Have you been to Urban Farm? That was the first one. Like, have you been? No, I've got to go check that out. And then, hey, you got to meet my friend Greg. And I meet you. I go, hey, we know each other. And then somebody, do you know Greg Peterson? I'm like, Greg Peterson? I don't know Greg Peterson, I don't think. And, shows up and go,
that's the Urban Farmer guy.
The Greg I know. That's the one. That's the Greg I know. So
there you go. When did you do the permaculture design course?
So I went through the PDC. It was 2006 was when I went through.
Oh, very good. So that was when Don was teaching it.
A number of other, I think Myron was there and a lot of the other guys. So it was a great cast of characters. It was a powerful.
Oh yeah.
Getting involved with the VPA at the time, the Valley Permaculture Alliance. Yeah. So that was pretty powerful. Kind of getting into that circle and kind of knowing the people, but also being. I didn't realize so much that I was one of the key core people as I evolved through it.
I know, isn't that cool?
So it's like, wow, I'm one of the people, the go-to people with that. Yeah. So it's a wonderful thing.
Well, let's kind of unpack that a little bit. You said you're one of the go-to people. How did that happen?
Well, part of it was with going through the permaculture design course, the PDC. After I completed it, they had asked if I would go ahead and be one of the instructors for one of the following courses.
Nice.
So where my schedule was and how things were, I wasn't really available to do it. However, they had asked that we were doing some of the other off courses. Some of the classes. We started to really push a lot of the classes.
Right.
So I said, I'll throw my hat in there. We were doing them at the farmer's market.
Right.
So downtown market. So we were doing a few courses there. And I thought, I love teaching. I thought I was doing it in my corporate job.
Yeah.
So I was a corporate trainer.
All right.
And so I was doing that. And then from there, I started teaching, 1 class here, 2 classes there. And then as I learned, so that was the powerful piece of my classes was, I think the VPA period, was that you were learning from someone who was learning or had just learned that or was mastering that.
Yeah.
So that's what I was teaching was, here's what I know up to this point. So, and I tell everyone, whenever you take my class, take it again if you haven't taken it in a year, because I guarantee you it's completely different because from what I've learned here's a better way to teach it, or here's a new piece to add to it.
Yeah.
So that evolved more with the VPA and then with other organizations. So from there, they would, City of Phoenix or City of Glendale would contact them. We need a speaker.
Nice.
They would point me that direction. And then that got me moving into my own direction of I would reach out to the City of Phoenix directly and say, hey, let me do a lunch and learn. Then I'd go to a different organization, work with Intel. Hey, let's do a lunch and learn. Let's do something. You guys have all this space. What are you guys doing? Or I drive past the organization. I see these, for lack of a better term, not quite successful planter areas. They'd have
all the time.
Yeah. Yes. I always say, I never ask like who's growing things. I always say who has things in pots,
Right.
And so from there, then I became my own agent to where I would say, I think it would be great to teach something with you guys. I think it would be great. And finding community gardens. And so it was kind of a back and forth where they were seeking me out and I was seeking them out as well.
So really what I want to point out of all of that, the nugget that I see in that you just kept showing up.
Exactly.
You just kept showing up and being great.
Yeah, that was the big piece of it was that so where I talk about my classes and what makes it unique about me and what I bring to it is me. It's my experience. Yeah. And so the core of my experience, everything I teach from is 100% something I've done wholeheartedly, hand by hand.
Yeah.
And even some of the things that I've even learned, a lot of the aquaponics, hydroponics, I'll teach it, but if I teach it, I'll definitely get involved to it.
Right.
I got to get some hands-on. Yeah. I got to figure out the system. I got to really learn. I don't just go to a book. I don't go to the YouTube. I take classes. I'm probably one of the most, when I was teaching at the VPA, I take classes just as often as I teach them.
I know. Isn't that great?
So I love
learning. I love learning.
I love it. Even with some of the other organizations that I'm working with Desert Song, doing classes there, taking some of their classes and seeing, who's involved here. What are their tenets? What's their doctrine? What do they mean? What do they want? What's their purpose? What's their mission?
And I'm going to point out here also, all those questions you just asked were observation questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I just observe and I go, and I look for part of it, like what's my connection to this community. Mm-hmm. So even in my own backyard. So I start my classes out there. Who has a backyard? They all raise their hand. I go, all right, stop it. You don't have a backyard. It's called a garden. It's called a garden. It's all garden.
Nice.
They just put a house in the middle of it.
Oh, that's great.
And here's the thing. They probably put the house in the wrong place.
Oh, absolutely. I know my house is in the wrong dang place.
Right? Yeah. So a piece of that is, here's the community. Here's the environment. What's my part in it? And humans are funny because we think we're so special with our thumbs that we're not a part of nature.
Right.
And we are. So much of us that we remove ourselves from it. We think nature's out there and we're here when we, and I love the people who live in, in the wild desert. I go, why are these coyotes in my yard? It's like, kind of your yard's in their yard.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're the one cheating. So when we see ourselves as part of that community, you realize how much broader it is and basically how much more you affect in that community, in the garden. What's your real role in it? You're not just out there planting seeds and watering stuff and picking stuff and planting seeds and watering stuff and picking stuff and tilling the soil and tearing stuff out. You're not doing that. The fact that you go out there and you sit and you observe and you walk and I call it plant dap. You just walk and just brush your hands across the wildflower, brush your hands across the vines.
Right.
The low hanging branch, I high five the leaves, little tree dap. But you engage with that environment. You are part of nature. You're the, I call it the sustainable component. You're the piece that keeps that pulse, the whole big piece of it. So it's a huge thing. And
that's beautiful, man.
When you can connect to that and realize.
Connect to that pulse.
Yeah. That you're part of that. You're part of that heartbeat. I mean, that was when one of my hardest lessons, I think at the time. I was having some through my marriage, and when that kind of I would say when that went fallow. So
well, that's a good way of putting it.
We're still best friends to this day. So through that process, where it was tumultuous, and we're going through that, the garden showed it. It totally. As much I was out there doing stuff and doing stuff and doing stuff, not working. I'm like, what is going on? I'm the guy, and it was my own spirit, my own pulse
was off,
was not thriving. Was not thriving. So I was in a place that wasn't, fully enriched with nature. All of nature wants to do is I just want to live and shine. Everything is just like, yay. Hi, sun. Everything's like reaching for the sun, reaching for the sun. Yeah. When our spirit's not there, when we're feeling down, or let's say, when we just disappear. I'm going to go on vacation and disappear, and somebody's just going to come watch the garden and water stuff.
Maybe.
9 times out of 10, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they might water.
Maybe.
9 times out of 10, everyone's got a story that says, yeah, I let somebody water while I was gone, and they killed everything. Everything died in their care, and it's just they don't bring that pulse into your environment.
Yeah.
So it's like when you remove the wolves. Okay, now the coyotes.
It'll show up. Yeah.
Everything goes out of balance. When nature has a perfect imbalance. It's not about out of balance. Out of balance is one thing. Imbalance. You take a seesaw. That's balanced, right?
Oh, yeah.
What good is a seesaw if it's balanced? It's the perfect imbalance. You go up, I go down. You push up, I let go. It's ebb and flow.
Right.
Summer, winter, fall. It's the seasons. It's the equinox. It's how the sun moves around us. It's day, night. It's all these things, this perfect imbalance that's always happening. So that's us affecting that.
That's a great metaphor, man.
Yeah. So these are the ways that I've kind of experienced that. And it's not just about step 1, step 2,
Right.
plot it out. Make sure it's, 1 foot square here, square there, and how many things you can put in there. It's just like, let it feel itself. I like to say, let things be born there. That's why I'm a huge proponent of seeds and growing from seed is allow things to be born there. When they're born there, they're from that.
Right.
I'm from Southern California. I'm a beach guy. I mean, I can smell ocean when I'm 300 miles away. I'm like, I know I'm close.
What
closer.
are you doing in Phoenix, Arizona?
Yeah. So and it's just in your essence of it. So there's certain climates. I'm from the Southwest, so hot weather is my thing. I love it.
Right.
Put me in Chicago and I am useless.
Oh yeah.
You might get one good month out of me, but
I've been to Chicago and it's kind of cold and windy there. That's not my gig.
Yeah.
I know people love it, but that's not my gig.
Yeah, but people who were born there, lived there, it's like they know, like that's just what that's just for them.
Right.
So that's a big piece of just like again learning what your environment is, who grows there naturally, who doesn't, but the great thing about it is we can again have that effect to say, let's make this area a little bit shadier. Let's make this area a little bit cooler, a little warmer, a little more arid. So we play with those components in design. So that's one of the key things with when we're talking about xeriscape, principles and permaculture concepts, where we have that effect to say, how do I do this? Where the two really come together. Xeriscape, and I'm just going to kind of define it for everyone.
Go.
So with xeriscape, people think, oh, that's rocks and cactus, desert landscape, right? Xeriscape.
That's what I thought, and it's spelled with an X, so it makes it even doubly hard to pronounce, right?
Yeah, so it comes from the root word xeric, arid.
Oh, right. Okay,
which
good.
Is arid, aridscape. But the power of the aridscape and the term actually was wrought from Colorado, where they're all about water management. And little side note,
please.
Guess what Colorado is for the whole Southwest? They're the spigot.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So Arizona, Nevada, California, Colorado's their water source, the Colorado River.
Yes.
So they have to manage the water-wise management. So, but also they're a rocky climate, so they don't have much soil. When you think about it.
Right.
So they have to, like us, you think, oh, it snows there and it rains there, they get weather. Yeah, and it all just washes away because it's built on a mountain. So when you look at other places like us where we don't get the rainfall, we get our I laugh at the people say, oh, we get about 7 to 10 inches. No, we get about 7 to 7.5 inches now. Yeah. And, when do we get our rain? In a day,
Pretty much.
We get
Pretty much.
Yeah. So all of our rain happens instantly. So how do we manage that water? That's just you just took a gallon bucket of water and said, drink this gallon now. Exactly. And you just dump it on your face. How much water did you really drink? So how do we temper that? So that's xeriscape, water aridscaping, water-wise management. So it's about where's the water and how do we use it effectively? We have cactus, we have Bermuda grass, we have oleander, we have hibiscus, we have citrus trees, we have vegetables, raised beds. How do I use my water for the optimal effect? So that's what the xeriscape piece of it is. So, we have our principles of xeriscape, and those kind of drive us into that. Okay. The root of it is observation, and then how do we manage our functions out there, stacking functions. Which
sounds very permaculture to me.
Which takes us into permaculture.
Right.
Permaculture, tenet number 1 and 2, observation, and then stack your functions.
Yep.
our core, our mascot, the chicken. We talk about the 14 and the 19. Well, I got 22 uses. Input outputs for that.
I'm gonna stop you here because for those of our listeners out there that don't know what stacking functions are, please tell us what that is so we can.
Yep. So to kind of compare the two, where we're talking two different sides of two different sides of a book. Two different covers of the book, is really just based on that stacking functions. What do we call that? You can almost call it your recycle concept. Where we all say, oh, how do I recycle, upcycle, reuse, repurpose, rethink. That's my thing. Reduce, reuse, rethink of how we use things. So stacking functions is, let's say I've got my roof, the water runs off, makes a big puddle over here.
Right.
How do I get this water from puddling? Well, why would I invest in gutters, channel it over here, and run it off my property, or run it over there into the big open space, so it doesn't make a big puddle by the house?
Okay, that's one.
Or I can plant a thirsty tree close by, a citrus tree, a fruit tree.
Oh, yes.
For what it costs to plant a tree, doesn't cost much. The investment, the little bit of labor, you plant a tree and then let it go. It's drinking all that water that's running off your roof when it does. Plus, we planted a fruit tree.
Of course.
So not only do we get to not have to spend money on gutter systems, we don't have to figure out how do I keep this puddle from puddling and getting worse. The tree is now drinking all that water. The investment was $30, $50 at best. The tree is drinking the water. The tree is getting big. The tree is now going to shade the house and cool the house a little bit, cool the soil a little bit. Maybe I can even plant some other stuff under there. But on top of that, it's a fruit tree. So now all that wasted water off my roof that was creating a big puddle mess is giving me fruit. So you see how we can outthink the problem in permaculture. The problem is the solution. That's one of our, we need t-shirts on that one.
Exactly.
But yeah, we look at the problem. So how do I solve this? And how does that effort give me a highest return?
Yeah.
So we look at it, we go, I got all this water, I can do all this stuff, but all I did was plant a tree.
Perfect. So let's boil that down. Stacking functions basically means using an asset as many times as you can.
Exactly.
Right. And in your example, you're basically suggesting that we harvest the water off of the roof, direct it to a fruit tree. So that's a secondary use for the water. And the fruit tree gives us mulch from the leaves. It gives us fruit. It gives us shade.
Yep.
Stacking functions.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And
beautiful.
Then, and then you can always think of I can plant stuff under that tree.
Yep.
That's also just getting the residual water, and doing other things. So same thing like with Xeriscape. So our thoughts there is when you're looking at that, you figure, how do I manage my water? So same thing. So if I got an area that's got a wet area, or better yet, a dry area, let's say my sprinklers aren't working right.
Right. Which happens.
Yeah. But the valves are leaking.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
The $2,000 it's going to cost to redo my irrigation system, my sprinkler system, I really don't want to do that. So I can take this option. How about I convert the grass into just, desertscape, gravelscape, but I plant a few hardy cactus, a few agaves, mix it up, but it's all in the design, make it look pretty.
Right.
But where the valves are leaking, there I can plant some wildflowers, some natives, some salvia, some penstemon, some things. And these things I can just plant by seed. You just buy $30, $3 worth of seeds. And these things not only just grow, but they produce more seed. And on top of that, not only am I producing more seed that I can use throughout my yard, how about I produce more seed that I can just harvest and put in little baggies, give to friends.
And share with other people.
Or I can entrepreneurialize that and say, how about I start harvesting my own seeds, put my own little label on and sell them for $1. And at some point, I'm going to save up enough money to buy my sprinkler system redo.
There you go.
So you see out there how we just kind of rethinking and stacking the functions, stacking the idea of how can I repurpose, and upcycle my thinking through this. So that's what a lot of it is.
Fantastic.
But you can always, again, do a good Google search for Xeriscape principles, and they'll give you the whole tenets there, but also permaculture principles.
Absolutely.
And it'll give you kind of that, and it'll define more specifically.
You mentioned earlier our mascot, The chicken.
The chicken.
I love the permaculture chicken. We have 21 hens here in the backyard at the urban farm.
Oh.
They pretty much roam free in our backyard. But why did you connect stacking functions and the chicken? Please tell us about that.
So where the chicken being the mascot. When you have just one chicken. So what do we have a chicken for? People go, well, chickens lay eggs.
Yay.
Bingo.
Right.
So what's it take to keep a chicken laying eggs? Chicken feed.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't have a dog or a cat that you're not just paying food for a dog or a cat?
Right.
Are they laying eggs?
No.
So the investment you pay in, let's say a pet, for what you're paying for a pet, which doesn't do much aside from going, hi, welcome home. Sorry I puked on the carpet.
Oops.
Yeah. At least the chicken's like, hey, I made some eggs over here.
Oh, and I left some poop behind.
I left some poop. Oh, by the way, you can use that for fertilizing the garden.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, I went and scratched up the garden a little bit more so that, you can, you don't need to till, like scratch that up and dig that. Oh, by the way, all those dead plants that were over there that were kind of dying and were done, I ate those for you.
Yeah.
So
and the bugs. They ate the bugs.
Yeah, and they ate the bugs. Oh, yeah, all those bad pests over there. I ate those too and kind of fed myself. So I kind of fed myself. I could use a little bit more, but yeah, I fed myself. I did that. And, all right. And, when all else fails, we go, all right, we'll have a nice little Thanksgiving celebration for our friend Harold the chicken.
Yeah, no. We don't do that here at the urban farm. But, although you could. I mean, I have actually in the past raised meat birds here at the urban farm and butchered them. And I'll tell you what, I went through that process to understand that process. Once I did it, it's like, okay, I'm much more of a vegetarian now.
Right. And so you understand like the real impact. Again,
yes.
What's my impact here in this environment? Like how do I affect this? So with the chicken, so we see one chicken, all I have to do is feed it, give it, build it a shelter, somewhere to house them. That takes a little bit of effort and some costs. You can do all kinds of different things. I had a friend, they actually reused an old doghouse to make a little chicken coop.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
So you can get creative with it. But even still with that investment, you build a nice coop. You can house 3 to 4 chickens, which means 3 to 4 times,
the eggs.
Times the eggs.
Yep.
And with that, now you got 3 to 4 chickens eating all your pests, eating all your bugs. When your garden gets spent and it's done, instead of running through there and having to pull everything out and haul it to the compost and do all this, you just let the chickens loose. They do all of that. Then they turn all the soil for you too. So while they're eating all that, they're picking through the soil and looking for bugs, but they're kicking up and digging up the soil. They're tilling the soil.
I'll tell you what, chickens are awesome tillers.
Oh, they're amazing.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I want to rent some. I have a compost, so we'll get into compost more, but I have a compost pile. Chickens do magic to a compost. They will expedite a compost pile probably 2 to 3 times faster.
Yeah.
Then because they're constantly agitating and stirring. They're doing the compost stirring and turning for you.
Let's talk compost. We're right here. Talk about compost.
So to get back to my story. So I was a master gardener. I was a gardener. Love my plants, love my natives. I'm in the Southwest. I'm all about it. And I thought, I'm going to try my hand at vegetable gardening. Why not? Let's grow our own tomatoes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I get some seeds, I plant some stuff, and I do stuff, and of course they die. And I plant some stuff, and things came up, and then they died. And I planted some more stuff, and they came up, and I bought some stuff. I thought, well, let's just buy some real good hardy stuff. And that came up, and they died. And then I planted those, and like, ooh, look, something's up there. It's almost a tomato. And I forgot to water it, and it died. And vegetable gardening.
We're going to talk more about this here in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Vegetable gardening was the stupidest thing I thought, period. Stupid. Just why are people doing this in the desert? This is dumb. This is a dumb idea. But I'm composting like nobody's business because I've got all this yard waste. Again, doing my xeriscape thing, managing this, using it for mulch and all this other kind of stuff. Free fertilizer. So I've got a great compost system going on. So I'm, just yard waste, just nothing but yard waste.
Yep.
Yard waste, kitchen scraps, household stuff, everything in the compost. And I'm doing this. And I'm putting it out there in my yard and planting some flowers and some wildflowers and putting it in the soil. And, lots of weeds and little things are coming up. Some of them are wildflower seeds and different things. Nice. And so I'm seeing some things. I'm seeing some different things. Well, what is this one? Okay, but master gardener principle, xeriscape principle, don't pull it till it blooms. You see what flower it is.
So you know what it is. Right.
If it's a real weed, most weeds are just unpretty wildflowers. So I call them Jan Brady wildflowers.
Oh, there you go.
So at some point I realized I've got all these tomatoes coming up in my garden. I noticed I was at a home at a nursery and I go, wait a minute, that's what's coming up in my yard. Those are tomatoes. like weeds everywhere because they were coming up from my compost, from all the tomato seeds out of the kitchen.
Yep.
So haphazardly, I fell into edible gardening based on compost. I said, stop buying stuff, stop trying to grow it, throw seeds out. That's all I did. I put seeds everywhere. I'd buy a few good, I learned the quality of seed, quality of plants. So I would go to a better nursery and buy better plant quality. But from there, I went, well, let's grow this. So I would grow stuff and I would harvest the seeds. I would go to farmers markets and harvest the seeds.
Nice.
And again, put those into the compost. I would effortless. It's like nature was doing it the right way. I'm just going to follow suit. So a lot of stuff was coming up, and then I started to build my own system. So through the magic of compost, a lot of this started to happen for me. So compost is just making soil, making fertilizer, all these things. Here's what I call compost. Compost, you're just feeding bugs.
Okay.
Stacking functions.
Oh, yes, of course.
My bugs are my pets. So all this stuff that I've got in my house, I got all this office paper that's shredded, all these documents, important documents. You want identity security? Shred it and compost it. Trust me, nobody's digging through your compost.
I know, but I am going to say this right now, though. I don't know that you want to actually compost printer paper with ink on it from the printers because of the chemicals in that. I took into that.
So what's your take on that?
I wouldn't do that because it's plastics that's going on that paper.
So here's my bent on that one.
All right, please.
I'll kind of take down my route of it. That which does not kill me doesn't matter.
Well, there you go.
But a lot of it was twofold. Number one, so a lot of things, like, why do we compost a lot of things? To not throw them away wherever our way is.
Yeah. I love that wherever
we call it close the loop. Well,
right.
So I'll talk more about close the loop in our permaculture talk. But it's about how many things do I not have to throw away and take the garbage to the curb. The recycle bin and the garbage bin. Every week. There's always tons of stuff. And I started to realize I could manage that to where I was taking my garbage can to the curb once a month. And that was because I had cats. So I had to get rid of the kid. You couldn't take it.
Yeah.
But it was an empty garbage can because everything went into the compost. And so through that process, I realized how much I can manage. And I was testing. This is me just doing my lab. So I'm seeing, like, what can go into the compost.
Oh, yes.
And what's the result on the back end. Like, what's the real effect? And I know sometimes people can have their sensitivities about some things, but for the most part, a lot of standard print ink now, soy-based, a lot of ink is now soy-based. A lot of paper is now, 10%, 20%, 50%, repurpose,
reuse.
Yeah, reuse paper product. So, but also that's something on my end where I can have effect and go, if I'm going to buy this, what am I bringing into my system?
Yeah.
What am I bringing into my compost, which is my bug food, which is my plant food?
There you go.
So how am I going to feed my plants, which feed me? And that's a decision. So see how this observation takes us all the way back to what's my effect? When I buy this, portable disc and it's in this big old, 12-inch by 12-inch plastic cardboard packaging thing.
Mostly plastic. I understand that.
Yeah. And so you kind of rethink, like, what's your point there? What's your purchase point there versus how does that affect my garden here? Yeah. So so a lot of the things where I was managing them through the compost to say, like, one, how does it break down? How does it affect my plants? Does it affect my plants? And at what point does it remediate? How much does it not pass through?
I really want to acknowledge you for something because I will try pretty much everything here at the Urban Farm. In fact, a few years ago, I tried Roundup in just a small spot in my front yard. I tried a little bit of Roundup, and I followed the directions on the Roundup, and I discovered that it doesn't work.
Exactly.
It doesn't work. But I did that experiment, and I was bold enough to do that experiment. And so I really want to acknowledge you for being bold enough to experiment with this stuff because we have to push the edges. Yeah. And then we have to make a decision for what works for us.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the whole decision. Again, that's why I say this is your environment. So I'm going to bring us to closing the loop.
Please.
This is about, we all want to do our part on the planet, save the world. I want to save the planet and save those people there and save them. It's like, here's my thing. You want to change the world? Change your world. Yeah. And if everyone did their part, change your world, that has that effect out and about. You're the demonstration. You're the practice. So someone's observing you. They're going, I'm going to do that too. but you're taking care of your little plot right there.
Right.
So experiment, and I always say, when in doubt, leave it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Oh, nice.
In the compost, you go, oh, I don't know about diseased plants, so throw them in the garbage. Yep. I don't know about this and that. I don't throw it in the garbage. I don't know. He said put the ink in there. I don't trust it. Throw it in the garbage. Throw it in the recycle. You know, so manage it on your own. But my garden I call it my lab. People say, oh, you have a beautiful garden. I go, yeah, this is an awesome lab.
Yeah,
that's what it all is. So, but that again, as a teacher, as an instructor, how can I teach it if I can't say, here's how it worked. Here's some things that may not work. Yeah. Here's some things. Here's the gray area. So this may work for you. This may not work for you. But it's like the gardens are 10 times more different than each individual us.
Yeah.
You know, gardens have their beyond a thumbprint, beyond a signature. So
it has a pulse.
It has their own unique pulse.
That is beautiful. That is unique pulse. Yeah.
And also I'll share with that pulse of it is not only am I having an effect with the bugs. Mm-hmm. I am now cultivating bugs, wildlife, which I call my self-fertilizing garden. This is what my compost system is about. How many bugs can I inoculate into this soil, generating great soil, because all good soil is bug manure, bug waste.
Yep, exactly.
The more they eat stuff, they're getting it through their system. You know, if I see a whole cadre of dead cockroach outside my compost, all right, I'm going to worry about what I threw in there.
Yeah, exactly.
But for the most part, somebody's eating it and cleaning it up. You know, the earth is its own stomach. So that the compost is just the stomach and intestine of the earth. So the more we can support that, we do that. We put that back in the garden. The bugs are now in there. The bugs are inoculating the soil. Now the bugs live in the soil. So guess what the bugs are doing in our actual garden? Eating and pooping, eating and pooping. They live there. They're making babies, eating and pooping, making more babies, eating and pooping. They're now producing more fertilizer naturally in the soil. So we don't have to do the till, the no-till concepts of how do we preserve our soil better? Don't till it. Leave the bugs where they live and keep them, just support them.
You're right.
So again, I feed my bugs. That's all I worry about. They'll take care of the plants.
Now, when you say bugs, let's kind of tease that apart just a little bit. You don't mean just like cockroaches. You mean, do you mean the soil life?
The whole thing. So we call it the soil food web.
Yep. Oh, perfect.
So you can even search that term, the soil food web. And there's from everything from the birds down to the cockroaches, down to the lizards, down to the cockroaches, to the pill bugs, to earwigs, centipedes, millipedes, etc. Then these little guys, worms, organisms, these bacteriums, all these fungi, all these things are in there. All diversity, right? Isn't that what any good community is about?
Yep, absolutely.
What are the greatest cities on the planet? The most diverse cities on the planet. There's all this amazing life. Europe is teeming with it because there's 900 countries in
in that small space.
Yeah, in the size of Texas, that kind of a thing. So we want to make sure that's what we're doing with the soil. So we're building our soil, working on that. So it's just one of those, again, stacking functions. All I do is compost and build soil and throw seeds out there.
Nice.
That's my real effort.
Nice.
I play and do other things, but as far as when I'm really producing, all I'm doing is building my soil, planting seeds, building soil, planting seeds, harvesting seeds, throwing everything else into the compost, which builds my soil, plants my seeds. And that's where we say close the loop. I don't throw anything away. So my waste stream comes into my property and it ends in my property. It stays on site.
Perfect. So I'm going to shift a little bit on you here. And I want to talk about a time you failed, how you overcame that failure, and what did you learn from it?
Okay. So I'll just go back to that story where I started edible gardening. That's like my number one,
and this is good because I wanted to talk to you about killing stuff.
Yeah. And people always, how do you know so much? You're so awesome. I said, you killed $2,000 worth of plants. you gotta
learn real quick.
You're gonna learn something. Yeah. So that was a part of my lesson. I would say that's the bloody knuckle to breaking the board.
Yeah.
That's the bloody knuckle to breaking a board. You want to break a board? You're gonna punch and punch and punch, and one day you punch through, and you're like, oh, how did that? And you somewhere in that process, you don't just break a board. You practice and practice and practice and practice and practice, and it comes through. Gardening is that practice. It's a push-up. It's a push-up. It's a push-up. It's a push-up. Now I can sit here and do one-arm push-ups because every day for the past 9 years I've been doing push-ups.
Yeah.
So people, wow, how do you keep your body so great and toned? Every day do a push-up. Every day do a push-up.
There's that pulse again.
That's it. So, I want to come back to
Nice.
that. So you being the pulse in the garden. Here's where a lot of my gardening starts. The observation thing of it.
Right.
It's the most amazing thing where I walk into someone else's place, a garden, but even in my own space, where I just show up and I'm out there and I'm looking for things and observing, and all of a sudden hummingbirds just show up.
Isn't that nice?
They're just like,
I love it.
Like, how did they know I was out here? They just, they buzz around your head for, 10 seconds or so. It's like they're taking,
Saying hi.
saying hi, but taking inventory about this.
Yeah.
This is the guy. Okay. I remember this guy. Okay. I remember you. And off they go. And I say, they go, and I say, they put it on the Twitter, the natural Twitter through the tweets. So the other birds find out, and the other birds find out, then the bees find out. And then all of a sudden you're out there one time and you see the big carpenter bee. And that just starts that. You're out there every day just taking a walk. Just go, oh, that looks better. That looks better. Observing. You're just taking that walk through there. You're bringing that pulse in there every day. And as you start to plant things and grow things
Yeah, that's our big takeaway for today's podcast. Plug into the pulse.
I
love that.
What's the pulse of your garden? What's your garden pulse?
So what do you consider your biggest success?
Well, probably one of my biggest successes, I would have to say, is my feature on Sundance channel. That was a really wonderful project.
Yes,
it was. That
was fun. I was involved on the periphery. I didn't get into it. But
so it was a wonderful thing to kind of throw that together. I mean, we made that whole project happen where the team came out and they wanted to shoot something, and we literally did it in 4 days where we converted a front yard of grass and turned it into a naturescape.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so it was a wonderful project. So that was kind of a fun thing, that not only just the project itself, but the actual piece of it itself was wonderful.
Yeah, perfect. What drives you? What's your big why?
Creative expression. People think it's something about doing something. Here's the thing. I'm out there just playing with God's crayons. That's what I call it.
Oh, that's so nice.
So no matter what I do, how I do a push-up, it's a creative process for me. When I'm teaching somebody, it's not just like a functional, it's a creative process. It's a give, it's mixing paint. It's playing with the blue in the sky. This is what I'm doing with people in the audience. So so the gardening is even more of that, where it's like, oh, let me try the seeds here, try the seeds here, try the seeds there. Try the seeds here, try the seeds there. Ooh, it's April, it's June, it's August, it's December. And I play with that, and I'm just playing with God's crayon. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing,
Nice. So what projects are you currently working on?
So my current 2 big projects. Number 1, we talked about it, Xericopia. That's my place. Xericopia Urban Gardens. My original place, Xericopia City Farm. That was my original lab. I call that one the lab, and this one's going to be the master, the one real piece. So Xericopia Urban Gardens I'm doing, and that's going to be my own teaching space where I'll be teaching a lot of my own classes.
Oh, nice.
I'll incorporate a lot of other components. I'm going to have one big, I call it the Palladium, one big space where we'll do lectures, we'll do yoga classes, we'll do Tai Chi classes. I'm also going to be doing a lot of cooking. So I'll start my whole series where for my space, it's going to be my Grow It, Cook It, Live It series, where I teach you right there within 20 feet of itself. You learn where to grow it. You learn how to cook it, and you learn how to live it. We actually sit down and we actually cook it and eat it right there. So that's my space.
Sweet.
My other big project I'm working with is my community tire salsa garden.
Oh.
So it's a wonderful project here in downtown Phoenix, just right off Central and the I-17, way downtown. Community Tire Pros, one of our local businesses, they had an old tire yard, and we converted their old tire yard, concrete parking lot, basically, converted that into a big old community garden.
Nice.
So we do a lot of events there, and we're going to have a lot of events really launching this year in 2016.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm all about education. And I want to know, is there one book that kind of lit your fire around gardening and xeriscape and so on and so on?
Oh, books. In my 2 cabinets of books, my favorite all-time book, and I wish I could one day write a book as good as this, Kim Nelson's, out of Tucson. Kim Nelson's Desert Gardener's Companion.
Oh, nice.
Amazing book. The beauty of it is it goes month by month by month, and it just talks about her story. So it's like you're getting her lab notes. So that's why I'm like, I love this. I'm reading her lab notes year after year after year. And I ended up cultivating my own lab notes, just kind of following her practices. Some of the things I tried, some of the things I'm like, I'm not really interested in that component or that component. Bulbs, that was one thing I did a little bit of, but she goes in extensively in it, which is gorgeous. But that's still probably one of my top books that I could recommend.
Fantastic.
Is Kim Nelson's Desert Gardener's Companion.
Perfect. Great. So one final piece of advice for our listeners.
Just start. So don't think too much into it. Start now. Because in the 3 years, you're like, oh, I'm in an apartment or I'm renting and I'm doing this. You're probably going to still be in there. There's 6 months into your lease, 9 months into your lease. Mm-hmm. You could have harvested twice if you would have just started. So just start now. And easy ways to start. You take some classes, urbanfarm.org. From there, I'm going to have my site set up, Xericopia Urban Gardens, but you can find us on the Facebook. So find those places where you can take some classes. Go to a community garden. Learn there. A lot of people are just looking for help. So you can actually help out and get something from it, learn something, but they'll share some of the bounty as well. But get started right now. Look at your local resources, get involved, but just start now. Start now. The longer you wait, the longer it takes you to get that fresh tomato.
And I love what you said earlier. You're playing with God's crayons. That's just beautiful.
That's my favorite.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show today and sharing your experience with us, Vynnie. It's been a treat to chat with you about all of this. How can our listeners get a hold of you?
You can always find me. I'm on all the social media, Vynnie McDaniels. So even on my website, I'm redoing, VynnieMcDaniels.com.
Perfect.
But my best place is going to be on Facebook, Vynnie McDaniels, and also Xericopia Urban Gardens, and that's Xericopia with an X, Xericopia, Xeric as in xeriscape, and cornucopia. Nice. A cornucopia bounty from a xeriscape space. So that's the whole point. Perfect. So you can find me there.
And that'll be on all our show notes pages.
Oh, wonderful.
Perfect. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us on the Urban Farm Podcast.
Greg, my friend, thank you again.
Absolutely. Did you know that according to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, 2/3 of all our fruits and veggies eaten in the United States come from outside the country? And there are all kinds of problems with that. For one, an apple that had to travel hundreds or even thousands of miles to get to your plate can't be all that fresh or nutritious. And I say that's just crazy, especially when we can grow so many different varieties in our own front and backyards. Jumping into growing your own food is actually quite simple. You just need to know the rules. My free webinar, Introduction to Urban Farming, begins to frame out your pathway to growing your own healthy food. In this free webinar, you'll learn the 3 simple steps to becoming an urban farmer, the 5 components of healthy soil, and how to think regeneratively, which is, by the way, one of the most important concepts we need to be exploring right now. Will you join me in this webinar and help co-create the food revolution? Just text GARDEN to 44222 or go to urbanfarmu.org to sign up for your free webinar. That's GARDEN to 44222 or urbanfarmu.org.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Urban Farm Podcast. Remember to listen 3 days a week for tips, advice, and resources to help you on your journey with urban farming. You can find us on the web at urbanfarm.org or send us an email to podcast@urbanfarm.org. In the words of Vincent van Gogh, great things are done by a series of small things brought together. Be encouraged that with each lesson learned and skill developed, you are one step closer in the direction of your dreams.